So hello again, Niall and Devin. We're following the theme again today about the IATF Auditor Guide, particularly focused on the competency, the process approach, incorporating risk-based thinking. And I was interested to see that one of the skills required under this competency is prioritization based upon customer concerns and/or special status condition. So I think for the viewers, it would be good, Devin, just to understand a little bit when IATF talks about special status, what does it mean?
So special status is something that is defined by the IATF OEM customer.
Right.
It is not something that is defined by IATF 16949 or anything like that. But it means that there is an issue within the manufacturing process or that organization that is causing a major concern for the IATF OEM.
Okay, so we can see special status means a big problem rather than a small problem, maybe repeat problems against a similar issue. So Niall, if we're in our audit preparation then, what type of information would tell us whether a supplier is on any particular special status?
Yeah, and again, there's some other, I suppose, rules, is that the right word, sort of customer specific requirements that organisations, a supplier to an IATF OEM would have to declare a special status condition to their certification body.
Okay.
So that's an important, so again, the organisation needs to understand what their customers would expect in the event of them being placed into what we call this special status condition.
Right,
and that might then lead to other things like certificate suspension and subsequent actions.
Yeah, and I guess that's looking at it from a third-party perspective. If we're looking at it from internal audit, Devin, and as part of our audit preparation, we see that there have been customer concerns, maybe even to an IATF OEM member, and they have been placed on some special status. How might that affect our internal audit? What should we be doing on the internal audit?
Right, so that's going to be an area of focus that you're absolutely going to want to follow up on and follow whatever process inputs and outputs surround the issues identified for that customer concerns.
Yeah. And now, will customer concerns always mean that we're going to be following the trail into manufacturing?
No.
Or could the trails lead into other quality management system processes?
Yes, and absolutely, Paul. An organisation has a set of QMS, quality management system processes. Manufacturing is obviously, by the nature of the organisation and the IATF scheme, a fundamental part of the quality management system, but it's not the be all and end all, as we might say. There are other obvious processes around manufacturing that could be responsible for the customer concern. So yeah, it doesn't always mean it's a manufacturing problem.
Right, okay. And let's say, I think the example that we're seeing on the screen now then is that we've had a particular problem. And this seems to be that in their proposed corrective action, they say that they're going to implement some robust training for new operators. And they're also going to be changing their way of looking after machines in terms of their total productive maintenance. Niall, take us on the audit trail there then, whether we're doing an internal audit or a third-party audit. What types of things are we going to be looking for there in verifying that this action is effective?
Yeah, so again, this is a great example where the auditor will develop an audit trail, again, outside of manufacturing into HR to understand what activities they're doing to improve the training and competency development of their people, but also into maintenance to understand a bit more about the TPM, the total productive maintenance changes that are being proposed. So that would have the auditor go into HR, into maintenance, and again, by definition, into production to see how effective those training programs and additional checks are actually being carried out in practice.
And Devin, I think, as we said in an earlier audit then, there's a need to check updated documentation within the quality management system. What might be, in this case, some of the types of evidence that an auditor should be looking for if we see these improvements?
Right. So obviously you're going to want to check training records to make sure that the operators themselves have went through the new training proposed by HR. And then as well as you're going to want to check the records of the TPM, right? The productive maintenance should have records of all their maintenance. So you want to make sure that and the forms that they're using to check off that the maintenance have been done have been updated.
Yeah, and I think this example we're looking at would be similar maybe to the discussion we had in the last video, was about we might come across cases where the actions haven't been yet fully implemented. So these actions could still be open. And I think, Devin, you said last time that that's not necessarily a problem.
Correct.
Yeah, in this case, not everything is fully closed. But we'd be following those audit trails to check the current status. Okay, so let's summarize then. In any audit, it is important to know, since the last audit, whether there's been any customer concerns, whether there has been any special status condition placed on the organization by any of their customers. That is particularly important from a third-party audit perspective, to know that information well in advance of the audit, because that could result in additional audit time. It could result in the suspension of the IATF certificate, depending on the relevant customer-specific requirements. But also, as part of the theme of this series, the same thing can be adopted from an internal audit. That if we're undertaking internal audits, we should be aware of any recent customer issues, any customer concerns, and particularly any special status condition placed on the organization by its customers. Because as part of the process approach incorporating risk-based thinking, we're going to use this information to prioritize our audit trails and make value-added use of the audit time that we have available. So next week, we'll actually be following this up with a practical audit situation, and we'll be able to observe the auditor following the audit trails from a customer concern.